all the change, 'cause oh, it's gonna come, yeah, it's gonna come. They can say only for years for years and years.
Hi everybody, welcome to the Revolution in Beer Show. RevolutionInBeer.com is on pouring another glass of beer here. I'm going to pass this down. Oh, everybody's got one?
That's for
Well,
you.
my God, I guess I'm last here. A toast to our guest. Folks, joining us today, we're at Glunz Beer Inc. in Lincolnwood, which is where all the magic begins, really. Well, almost where the magic begins.
Mecca.
This is sort of the middleman from all the great beer that you see behind us and around us. That we're just in a cathedral, a church of beer, if you will. With us is our good friend Jennifer Faulk, who's part of the Glunz legacy here.
Yes, part of the fourth generation, very proudly.
That's it. 4 or 5 generations right now in business here in Chicago, 125 years.
125 years this year, so
That's
a big
amazing.
milestone for us.
That's amazing. Happy birthday.
Well, thank you.
All right.
Very
Cheers, everybody.
exciting.
Let's do a quick toast to having you here. And then next to Jennifer is Eric Kobus, who's the craft and specialty brand manager for Glunz.
That's correct. That's correct.
And is going to tell us some wonderful things that we need to know about beer.
I work as
why
a-
people. Yeah.
I work a little bit as sort of a liaison between the breweries, sales force, and with this wonderful family here.
It's
so.
a great.
And
family.
Eric just started with us first week, so
right.
there's
Well, then
something
this is
to
a double
toast.
congratulations.
Another
Absolutely.
toast.
Cheers,
I think we're going
guys.
to have a good time with
That's
our
right.
toast.
Absolutely. I'm going to reach over the microphone here just because this is necessary.
The heck?
And I will
What the
catch you.
heck?
Yeah, there we
What the
go.
heck? We're going to do this. We're going to do it right.
And
All right,
Eric,
Tom.
Eric
There you
has
go.
the fullest glass. We're gonna
That's right. That's right. That's exactly right.
One of the things, folks, we've talked a lot of activism. We've talked a lot about a lot of things on this show. One of the things behind the scenes is when I talk to Jennifer, we always get into these conversations on history. I'm a big fan of Chicago history. I've done all kinds of research on different aspects of Chicago history. I didn't realize how intimately connected Glunz was with Chicago history. Tell us a little bit how the company got started, because it's a really fascinating story, and I think people would love to hear it.
Well, my great-grandfather immigrated to Chicago and actually went to work for the Wacker and Burke Brewery, which Charles Wacker is a name that everyone is familiar with. Wacker Drive is where
Yep.
that came from.
Yep.
And Mr. Wacker actually gave my great-grandfather the business loan to start the business.
Wow.
And he started with Schlitz beer,
Yeah.
and for many years that was the lady that brought us to the dance, which is a saying that my father is very fond of, as are we. You never forget the lady that brought you to the dance, and that was Schlitz. We actually served it at the Columbian Exposition of 1893,
Yeah.
and ironically enough, the Field Museum is going to be launching an exhibit of the Columbian Exposition, and we had the rare opportunity to go behind the scenes with them
Yeah.
this past week and look
Yeah.
at how this whole exhibition is being built. But it's also where Pabst earned the award for America's Best, which
Right.
they won the
Okay.
Blue Ribbon and thus changed their name to Pabst Blue Ribbon.
Wow.
So our family survived Prohibition by brewing the wine for the church. We also sold all the
Amen.
ingredients. We were home brewers. Yes, we were home brewers back then at the store. We sold all the ingredients during the day.
So right now you're confessing to a felony, basically.
Well, no, actually it was legal. Let me be clear.
Okay.
Let me be clear. So haven't we gone past the years they can still prosecute? Just in
Yeah,
case?
I think the statute of limitations.
Statute of limitations.
Well,
that was the
that'll
word
be
I was
gone in
looking
a year
for.
ago, so.
That's all right.
The way they're running through things now.
No kidding. But we sold all the ingredients. So you could buy the hops, you could buy everything at the store, which is at Wells and Division today.
Yep.
It's
Still there?
actually still there. And my Aunt Barbara and her son, Christopher, just reopened the Glunz Tavern.
Yeah.
Bringing back what the store originally was
With
back
that
then.
great, beautiful
Great menu.
facade.
They
Yeah.
used a lot of the historic stained glass windows, all of the
that's
historic. It's a museum unto itself.
It's a
so if
beautiful
you get
building.
the opportunity,
Yeah.
really stop by.
Yep.
Fantastic food, fantastic family atmosphere, and in one of the greatest neighborhoods in Chicago.
Yeah, agreed. You were talking a little bit about Schlitz and the connection there to after the Chicago fire, how they helped rebuild the city. I thought that was really an interesting. That beer is really kind of integral to this city. in a lot of ways, but following the Chicago fire.
Absolutely. The Schlitz Brewery actually sent water, the drinking water, to the city
Yeah.
after the Chicago fire to help with the cleanup, but everything else, you had to have drinking water. And after that, Joseph Schlitz Brewing Company built the Tide Houses, which are still, you see today, Schuba's is an example.
Sure.
And what he was doing was emulating in Europe, in the communities there. The tavern was actually the community center.
Yeah.
So there's a stage, typically, there's the bar, there's meeting rooms, it's a facility kind of like the community center unto itself. The children are there, and, you know, dogs are always, it's just like in Europe, you see everyone go there.
Yeah.
And so what they did is strategically built corner taverns all over the city of Chicago that obviously served Schlitz. And
But they served another function as well.
it reestablished the neighborhoods.
Yes.
That each
Yeah.
ethnic community
great.
then had a meeting place, and they were able to then build up around what was then the community center at the time.
Right.
And if you remember, actually, pubs in Chicago were voting. You voted in the pubs. So, you know, there
Bring
again.
that back.
Oh yes, it was very much a polling place, and that wasn't long ago. I don't know the exact year, but you know, voting within the bars was buying the vote meant buying a beer.
We need to
And
bring
that
back
was very
those days.
much- I think so too.
Imagine the turnout we would have. Imagine the
I
better turnout.
know.
I know.
You could do great beer specials. You know,
exactly
get out the
right.
vote.
When I first came to Chicago, one of the ways I was pitched on it, one of my professors in school was like, "Oh, you'll love it. It's very neighborhood oriented. There are all these different bars and everything around." And I got here and I'm like, "Wow, this really is something. You can pretty much hit a bar every couple of blocks if you want." And when
A
the
couple of feet in some places.
and I was stacked on top of each other, three. I was canvassing during one of the elections, and the everyone was concerned about voting turnout, and I was just thinking, you know what? Why is it that bars don't say give people a free beer if they show their certificate that they actually voted and whatnot? Someone had said that might pose a legal challenge or something, but it sounds to me like
Depends on the beer.
Some do actually offer specials. If you show that you voted, they offer a special on food or a discount. I know that has been something we've promoted with them. But Chicago is the number 3 city in the U.S. for beer and beer centric.
Yeah.
So we are a Mecca when it comes to people
Yeah.
who appreciate quality beers.
Absolutely.
They really are passionate about what they're drinking.
Yeah.
And so your show is very timely and very, very focused on what's happening right now.
And there's some great beer being brewed in this city. You guys help distribute and get the word out about a lot of that beer. But then there's some great local neighborhood places, little, for lack of a better word, mom and pop places that are really doing some spectacular beer. Before the camera started rolling, we were talking about Oktoberfest in Munich. And Brian and I, weekly we do a beer of the week highlight. We'll pick out a beer that we like. We've done a lot with you guys following that seasonal arc of beer, but we've also kind of picked out some of the standouts, those little tiny places that people might overlook. And I'm just going to call one out here randomly, Spiteful Brewing, where we had talked about they do a Dunkelweiss. And I've been all over Germany.
Damn good.
There's I've spent a lot of time in Bavaria. There's probably not too many small house beers and large house beers in Bavaria that I haven't tasted at some point. And in the beer of the week, we talked about that the center of the Weiss universe, or at least the Dunkelweiss universe, might have shifted to Chicago.
No, we'd like to-
fun
way.
that.
Absolutely.
Everyone's going to be talking about that. Let's make a hashtag.
Yeah,
Let's do
Absolutely.
that. That's great.
Absolutely.
bring on World War III or 4 by the time this airs. No, it was interesting because we lined up Francis Connor and like a couple of others and tried them all and tried to, close our eyes and our open our senses up, and man, it was a hard call.
It was a whole new character.
I think the city of Chicago has definitely been asking for some new things. Some of those smaller breweries you mentioned, Spiteful by name. They've done some great beer, some very interesting beer,
Yeah.
some classic
Yeah.
styles, along with some very more maybe a classic style with a twist to it.
Yep.
Which I think has really brought the people of Chicago really craft centric.
Yeah.
Back to the sort of the roots of where beer was. 100 plus years ago. So
Absolutely.
it's really been an interesting thing. The past 5 years in particular, things have just really exploded.
And then sort of dovetailing from the history of Glunz to give us that little base there to talk about talk about the marketing or the market of beer and how the beer market has changed, how consumers' tastes have changed. Again, talking about Spiteful, but not just them. That the whole renaissance, I guess, of craft beer right
They're
now.
demanding better, Bill. They're
They
demanding
are.
better beers.
The consumer is learning,
Yes.
learning
There's been a
about the
paradigm shift,
Exactly,
hugely so.
exactly.
Based on education is, I think, probably the biggest thing is that there's been a huge push and people have a thirst for knowledge that they want to learn more and learn to brew. There's been brew shops popping up everywhere as well.
Yeah.
But retailers are really providing a selection, and not just from one country or import and domestic. They're doing by country. You've got Belgium, you have your German, you have your Austrian, you have your Canadians, and they're going through an entire section that you can actually mix and match a six-pack. But a customer that goes into a store and asks for a product, the push-pull effect has shifted as well.
Yeah.
That retailer is not dictating, the customer's dictating. I think,
Yeah.
Eric, you
Yeah.
saw that on the retail side.
Absolutely. I definitely would see that. It is an interesting thing where you think in the 1960s there were less than 100 breweries here in the United States.
Right.
In 1880 there was almost 2,000. Coming back today now, only 30 years later, we're back to over 2,000 plus.
It's amazing.
It is amazing.
Yeah.
In 30 years that's happened, and you think that, well, growing up as a kid in the 70s, I saw some imported beers, but for the most part, I saw my idea was beer was golden and a little bit fizzy, with a very thin little white head.
Yeah.
And now I think about if I was a 15-year-old kid today, seeing what mom or dad were drinking, the world is my oyster. I mean, that is never going to change. And as a prior retailer, I would always hear about people saying, well, when is this bubble going to burst? And I think this bubble is not going anywhere. The person who today is drinking a smoked porter is never going to say, I want to go back to drinking that same...
You can't.
That mass-produced
Yeah,
beer
this
that
is
has no
rice beer.
flavor.
Yeah.
I need some rice beer.
Right,
please.
exactly.
Right,
I mean,
no.
it's never going to go away.
And it's the character of those beers. It's the richness and the flavors and the layers, the inspiration. I mean, it's really sort of like looking. It's sort of like having that velvet painting of the dogs playing poker on your wall, and then you begin to educate yourself about fine art.
Sure.
You're never going to go back. Yeah, every once in a while you might look and snicker, but,
Sure.
but you're never really going to go back to the
You're running dry on cash at the end of the month. maybe.
but it's the richness, it's the artistic nature of that beer that sets it apart, and I think that's why, and you can speak really wonderfully on this, is why the consumer is beginning to move away from that mass marketed beer towards.
Absolutely. You think about the things that are out there today. Somebody like brewing in the southwestern suburbs, Five Rabbit in Bedford Park. A Latin style beer, which appeals to everybody.
Yeah.
Somebody who tells me they're not a beer drinker, well, I challenge that person saying, we can find you something. Because once again, their idea of being beer is something that is golden and not what I'm calling beer whatsoever.
Yeah.
Something like, like I said, Five Rabbit I think is a great example because their styles are so unique.
Yeah.
Five Lizard, a Latin style wheat beer with a little passion fruit and coriander in there, where it is the perfect summer beer, an absolute perfect summer beer. But at the same time, though, it'd also be quite nice in December and January.
Yeah, and we've
Well, they have great stories.
They
That's
do.
the other thing,
They
is
really
that
do.
each of these breweries, and I think as the marketing and as the director of marketing, one of the unique things we get to do is tell their story.
Mm-hmm.
And these people who get behind these brands and create these breweries are just like you could be the next brewer out there to be the next Five
Absolutely,
Rabbits,
absolutely.
because
Absolutely.
these people got together with their passion. They've come together. They're telling a story with history, with the brands they produce, and that's the neat thing. I mean, for me especially, but we do have the greatest job in the world. We sell beer.
You do.
I mean,
Yes,
truly,
absolutely.
how can anyone not enjoy what we do?
Absolutely.
And we're great storytellers, and we enjoy that. But there's a great example of some very passionate people, Randy Mosier and the crew from Five Rabbit that are hugely.
Who Randy, by the way, not to interrupt you, I'm sorry, but has written basically the beer Bible.
Yes.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
he's been probably one of the single most instrumental people, I think, in the
Yes.
craft beer movement, just by his passion of, as an author, as a teacher at the Siebel Institute, working with Craft Brewers Association, coming up with the American Craft Beer Week, doing all of these initiatives to help push that needle. And the rising tide floats all boats, and I would say he's probably the captain of that ship.
Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely.
And to let people know, all the beers that we're drinking, and also to Randy's book. You can find all of that at our website at revolutioninbeer.com. Like us on Facebook at Revolution in Beer. We'll begin. We also want to hear from you, by the way. If you've got a favorite, if you've got a beer that we haven't covered in our beer of the week, let us know. Talk to us about what you like, why you like it, and we'll share that with listeners and with folks on our
If
website.
we've got something wrong, or you want to ask us any specific question, info@revolutioninbeer.com. We'll get you right to both of us, so you can hit us that way.
Yeah. Where we're doing the reviews of these great beers every week.
That's great.
Yeah,
That's great.
And telling you a story. Where I don't know if you've caught many of them. We don't do the regular. This beer is 7% by alcohol and it tastes like grapefruit and da 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 da. We're telling you a story. We're trying to take you on a journey.
Well, it's
a little
personal.
bit.
It's personal for
It's
us
personal.
too,
It's
especially
very
with especially with your travels. I mean, you've experienced a lot of these flavors close to the point of origin, and you write a lot about.
Sometimes at the point of origin.
Yeah, sometimes right inside the mash tun. Only when he slips and falls in. But,
Go ahead.
you should go ahead.
All right, I'll go ahead. I guess where this is all sort of leading then is how the market is changing, how the beer market is changing. There is, if you don't think too hard about it, there's this kind of monolithic vision of who is drinking beer, but that monolith is being chipped away.
I'd say shattered is a good
Shattered
word.
is a great way of putting it. That women and minority communities are coming to this in a strong way, and we talked about Five Rabbit, that's making some strong inroads, not just in maybe a Latin community, but maybe exposing folks that aren't necessarily aware of all of the layers that a Latin inspired beer can have. So bringing people to things like with coriander and what have you.
Absolutely. The amount of things that you can add to a beer to flavor it are fantastic. They're great food pairing vessels as well. I think about something like Guajillo chili pepper, something like that. Which would be fantastic with any sort of grilled meat. One of the fun parts of my job, one of the many fun parts of my job, is to do those things. We take people on that kind of experience, sort of pairing those things together, and rather than just going from what was the traditional beer, but where people's palates have exploded. They want the center of the plate meal, the steak and the potato, and then they want their drink to accompany that, to partake with that as well. Which has kind of been, I think that is how it's all started, how the styles have sort of shifted. People's food network has exploded. So many things have happened in the past 10, 15 years.
Well, even every grain for human consumption has also had a beer or fermentation of it.
Absolutely.
Goes alongside of it.
Absolutely.
Civilization. So.
Well, even the selling process, I think, has changed as well. That you're not just dealing with the bar manager to say for a restaurant, you're working with the chef. And it touches upon the food pairings. We're doing more and more beer dinners, more and more educational items, but the chefs, they're actually teaching it within the schools now through the different culinary schools on cooking with beer, how to make sure you're doing correct food pairings, and it's become more commonplace that you're selling beer through the kitchen as well as through the front door, and that is a big thing as well. But demographically, we touched upon women in the beer world, and not just women in brewing. There's a huge number of temperance brewing right in Evanston. I believe has 2 women working within.
Actually 3.
3 women at brewsters. They call them
That's
brewsters,
exactly right.
which I love that term.
Right.
I absolutely. We're gonna hashtag that too. That's awesome. I mean, they're phenomenal. But tell us a little bit about them.
Yeah, there are certainly lots of women in the industry. Women drinking beer, women in the industry. Temperance brewing is a great representation for Chicago, up in Evanston as well, doing some very unique things. But it's just an exciting time to do those things. Once again, if you talk about somebody who doesn't like beer, sometimes it's a man, sometimes it's a woman, and sort of like I said before, I would challenge somebody trying something like the Stiegel Radler, something like that, trying something very unique, something Belgium, something.
Lambics.
Yeah, absolutely.
A dark lager. Come to the dark side. Coffee and chocolate.
Yes.
How could you not like that?
Absolutely.
Now, as marketing folks, do you see some assumptions by the beer industry regarding women's taste in beer that you want to call out here, that you want to change, or that you want to correct?
Well, I can let you speak on that. Probably a little more politically correct.
I think
Being a woman.
I think we'll both talk about it
That's right,
because
that's right.
I think that there is assumptions sometimes by the mass-produced beers that women are not enjoying as much as our male counterpart, and I would have to contest that hugely because. The more and more you look around, the women and their buying power is something you do not want to ignore.
Yes.
No.
And it really is, and their taste, and that's the other thing is that there's a number of societies in Chicago alone. There's the Pink Boot Society, there's Chicago groups that a number of our staff are a part of, that are women sitting down and you share a six-pack, you bring a six-pack and talk about the beer. And I think that you're going to see more and more of that, not just women in the brewing, at the brew house, but you're seeing a huge trend in women enjoying the product and making the recommendations just as much. So I think we're seing more and more of that, and probably needs to be, it's a force to be reckoned with.
Sure.
They should recognize it, or they're going to miss it.
Sure. Absolutely.
In the natural food, organic food, artisanal food marketplace, it's well known that women are the people that you talk to, because in many cases they're going to be making the buying decisions when it comes to food coming in and out of the house.
Thank you very much.
And they're also going to be doing the legwork in many cases to go get that. So they have a lot of power when it comes to what dollars out of a family household are spent, in the marketplace. So it doesn't surprise me at all that craft beer connoisseurs and business people are wising up to that. It's a very good idea.
In the last couple of minutes here before we start wrapping this up, what are the big trends right now? Which direction is the
I think drinking local is definitely one of the major focuses. Obviously, they're making great beer worldwide,
and that's having a really big impact on the overall market, the sales of the overall market.
100% it is, absolutely. We have seen lots of people, large scale breweries, make a big to do of shipping beer 1,500 miles west, and they'll get in your hands so fast, and you should drink it so quickly. But my perception has always been you could also just drink beer that's made right down the street, and it's going to be here the next day.
Buy local, drink local.
Yes,
Buy local, drink local.
absolutely.
And
Whether it's coming from Michigan, Wisconsin, Bedford Park, Evanston, Chicago itself. I mean, it's made right down the street. Why would you not support your local business?
Absolutely.
Because they're in turn going to be supporting you back.
Again, I want to remind folks real quickly, and then we'll come back to you. Stay tuned at the end of our show. After the credits, we're going to post all of our contact information. We're going to talk. We'll have more about the beer, some of the beer that we're enjoying here, a couple of different wonderful brands, and then we want to receive any feedback from you guys. We want to hear from you. We want you to get involved in these shows, and at the very least, do it over a good beer.
There you
Absolutely,
go. There you go.
absolutely.
Well, in the same vein of drinking local and supporting the small guy, we're seeing a huge uptick in the import craft breweries, these smaller breweries that are throughout the world that don't have the big media budgets, and they're being discovered by the consumers. And that's another one that I'm seeing, or that our company is seeing in the Belgians, the Canadians, and really seeing those breweries make a huge uptick because they're a small guy too. Yeah. And it started there.
And it's back to that character and depth aspect of a lot of these beers. And I know the wine industry over the last decade or so has been really good about showing how the different layers and levels and tastes in beer and food pairing, beer is starting to catch up. And I think, and I hope I'm not showing a complete bias here, that I think there's even more diversity among beer.
Absolutely.
Oh, sure.
Well, there's many ingredients starting off the bat right there. I mean,
Precisely.
You've got one major ingredient when you're dealing with wine. There's so many other things. The other thing that's fantastic about beer is it's a natural palate cleanser. The effervescence is fantastic. Yeah. Wine and cheese, don't get me wrong, I think it's a great thing. But beer and cheese is a fantastic
We're revolution in beer. Okay, we are biased. It's okay.
Sure.
We're not claiming to be fair and balanced
Absolutely.
about our booze.
if I'm going to eat,
Or politics,
eat something that's fantastic cheese that's going to be made out in the uplands dairy in Wisconsin, it is I don't want to pair a big Cabernet with that. I'd love to have something that would have some sort of malt characteristic to it,
Absolutely.
and some bubbles to cleanse my palate every single bite.
But even with fine dining, where you have those subtleties of flavor, you're able to pair beers beautifully with a lot of that. I think in some better ways than wine. And I was educated in wine years and years ago, so I have a pretty strong understanding of wine, but I just think that there's a better palate, there's a better spectrum to beer, that wine comes close to the line, and wine has its place, but it falls a little bit short, especially with the craft beer revolution or renaissance, as we were calling it.
Absolutely. No, I think I am a wine drinker as well. My education started with a wine as well, and I think it's a great way to kind of open your palate to those things.
Absolutely.
You really can learn a lot from that, and the nose on lots of wines are fantastic. But now you can see just as many people taking in the way I taste beer, agitating it, looking at it, smelling it. Roughly about 90 to 95% of what your brain perceives as taste comes through your olfactory senses.
So what we could say here is that wine are the training wheels for beer.
Oh, there you go. That's
there
a
you
good
go.
visual
There you
too.
go. Absolutely.
Guys, that's a half hour.
Wow.
It's a great time.
That is a half
No
hour.
kidding.
It goes very fast. I want to thank you both for joining us here today.
Thank you for
it was
having us.
absolutely
Thank you.
brilliant. We're gonna connect to Glunz, and I would encourage people, give the website for folks.
Our website is glunzbeers.com. You can follow me on Twitter, Glunz
Yeah.
Beerness, which is just a play on the whole word.
That's perfect.
So yeah, we're doing great.
Which and they can also get some more of that great history and some great photographs of the family and some great photographs of Chicago history.
It'd be great to meet back up with you guys and maybe even do something specifically for the website and carry on some of the topics we were talking about even once we're getting into
We'd be
it.
happy
There's
to.
so much ground that we covered earlier, and I would love to cover more.
That's it. That's a show. So I'd like to make a toast, even though I'm kind of out here, to a few of my favorite
Way out
days. Here's to the holidays, guys.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Cheers. Oh, you're a good man.
All 365.
All 365 of them. Right on cue,
Sorry,
Brian.
iron calling, dude.
Yeah, I'm just waiting for the catalyst. I'm waiting for a change, 'cause oh, it's gonna come.